Hey everyone, welcome to Slite's office hours. Hey Chris.
Hey yo, everyone.
Hello. All right, I see that people are coming into our meeting room, which is great because we have a very exciting program today. The session is recording, so I'm going to start with my intro and then we can get into the more exciting stuff very soon. So, welcome everyone. My name is Anouk. I am the head of customer success at Slite, and here with me is Chris, our CEO. And today's office hours will be all around AskX, our new product, which is in beta, and we're super excited to tell you more about it. Chris will be doing most of the talking because next to the founder of Slide, he's also the brains behind AskX with some amazing colleagues, of course, but he's the best person to tell you more about it. As I mentioned, our session will be recorded. You will get the recording plus some resources after the session is over. And our chat is open as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them there. I'll keep an eye on them. And also let us know where you're dialing in from. I see we have France already, India. I'm dialing in from the Netherlands, where winter is coming and it's 4 p.m. and it's already very dark. So,
Same thing here.
same thing in Berlin. All right.
Yeah.
Gonna hand it over to you, Chris, so you can take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Anouk. So yeah, the goal here is to speak a bit about AskX. Thanks so much for joining. Maybe like to get started with, I put like together a small presentation. The goal is to obviously show you the product at some point and also ask you a lot of questions on what we're doing. And I will share my screen always. All right. So, for you that are not fully aware, AskX is a new tool that we are building at Slite. For the kind of background story, I've been actually building it with a small team inside Slite for the past 8 months. The goal here is to show you like what it is about, like what's the product, answer all your questions. So please start asking them in the chat. I know that you will have a lot. We'll ask also a few questions for you throughout this presentation. But really kind of like ask at any time, and if it's relevant, we'll take them straight as I present, and if not, like, we'll answer them at the end. And Anouk here will help me moderate that. All right, so first thing on AskX. I just want to kind of like, as you probably know, like we are the builder behind another tool called Slite. Slite is a knowledge base. And since the beginning, like the goal with Slite has always been to make team knowledge ubiquitous. So basically, have you being able to access knowledge from all your teammates at any time, from anywhere. And that's what was Slite all about. So, we built it as one place that was easy enough, simple enough, and flexible enough to host all type of knowledge. We built knowledge management tools to keep things fresh, up to date, clean, find the archive and so on. We built tools to make it accessible from anywhere you work, so from Slack or from your browser. And of course, last year, we were the first knowledge base in the world to release Ask, which was like for us, like the best application of LLMs to knowledge management and knowledge access. And so Ask was, like a way for you to just ask your knowledge base questions. It's still there. It will remain if people are asking. It's basically like a tool that we consider great when you have like refined knowledge. So when you have a help center or, like a knowledge base that is well maintained, it's perfect. Thanks, Leonka. Of course, it won't go anywhere. AskX is just like an extension of it, and actually we'll change the name to clarify the difference in the next months. And of course, like, we went one step further with Ask Insight to kind of like detect what was missing in your knowledge base. And we are also kind of like really 10xing on this feature in the next months, actually. Like we have the team working on it right now. But yeah, like those were all tools to help you have like all knowledge in one place, clean, accessible by anyone. And we reached a point where we felt that we needed something new. And the reason for that was like threefold. The first thing is that we needed all team data, not just Slite. So we saw that, a lot of your team data is in your CRM, in your Slack, wherever you work, right? It depends also on your industry. The second thing is that when we started to do that, we realized that there was so much contradiction and we couldn't help you clean the data in your Slack, for instance, of course. And so we needed another UX. We needed more intelligence, more real estate as well to explain to you what was needed. And the last thing, which is like something that I will touch at the end of the presentation, is that Ask is good, but actually all the technology of AI and semantic search can go beyond just asking. That means asking questions about data, for instance, or it means searching rather than asking. So I'll show you a bit that around, but all this meant that we needed a new tool, and that's AskX. So this is AskX in action, actually. I just typed like a random query this morning and pasted the screenshot. I'll show you it live, of course. So yeah, on Ask versus AskX, since I see already a question, on the difference. Ask is a tool that we wanted to make part of all our standard pricing. So we didn't raise the price for Ask, for instance. The challenge with that is that we needed to use relatively cheap models, not cheap, but not too expensive. And also we couldn't have too much reasoning and too much UX to clarify when things were overlapping, contradictory, and so on. And so that's what Ask is. It's great. It's amazing when you ask it on a very kind of specific set of data. So if you go, for instance, on help.slite.com or Help Center, you will see Ask in action. And here, which sources can I import from? Sorry for my typing. It works very well just because it is very much a simple source of knowledge. It is very much cohesive. We keep things up to date. We keep things clean. And so Ask works super well. But then when you enlarge the context, so when you have much more data, all the data that you have in your team project and so on, well, things get much more complicated, and that's a problem that nobody has solved in the market yet. And that's the challenge that we tackle with AskX. And the way we do it is with a dedicated experience and with much more advanced reasoning. So demo time. And actually, before demo time, one thing that I love to ask, yeah, that's a twist. One thing that I love to ask is, can you type maybe in a sanitized manner in the chat questions that you have asked or seen your team ask this week in your Slack, in your Teams, anywhere that you think, things that won't exist in the future, things that, should be handled directly through this kind of tool. I see Semed as an ID, Leonka as well. Yeah, exactly. Whenever my server is updated. So something about recent updates or a project being worked on. That's exactly the kind of questions that AskX can help you on. And okay, so responsibility, so internal operation, internal processes, awesome. That's exactly the kind of thing that we can handle. Awesome. So we'll see a few others that's actually super helpful even for user research in a way for us. And yeah, exactly. I'm back from holiday. What have I missed? So we have something very special for you, Thomas. And actually, I think you're already in the pilot, so we might have something to even send you at the end of this. Ping me on Slack after, because that's a feature of AskX that will be dedicated to this specific thing. So let's start with what we cover already with AskX. The kind of top use case that we see is internal support. So basically, people have questions, and the answer is not documented well enough in the Help Center. And it's really about finding questions that have been asked already, for instance, in Slack. So we'll go about this to start with. So this is my AskX. And so, for instance, maybe I will actually start sharing only the screen so that you have
I was just about
a better
that.
view.
Maybe you can make it a bit larger for us
to
see it. Yeah, this
awesome.
is perfect. Yeah.
So for instance, there is a question that was asked like 2 days ago, I think, like somebody asked, so it's in the context of Slite, of course, us selling like the Slite knowledge base platform. Is there a way for us to disable AI for customers? So some customers like were asking this. Here you can see already that the first step of AskX is looking for sources. You can see already the sources being displayed. The big thing with these steps, a lot of things happen. I will explain after. The big first part is the sources. As you can see, there are sources from GitHub. This is from Slite. This is from Slack. We probably have other sources. The beauty first of having all this data is that the combination of data actually brings the best possible answer, and also confirmation for the user if this thing is relevant, if it's still up to date or not. So it lets the user double check if the answer is trustable or not. The second thing that we do is that we explain the sources. And that's one of the things that makes you completely independent as the end user. Even if you have not worked on the project and you're a support agent, for instance, you can actually understand, like that, for instance, this document has been updated last week. This was a discussion from 5 months ago. And, it explains how to kind of like do this through organization metadata and so on. So you can have like, double check to understand if the answer that will be generated from that is relevant or not. You can also exclude the source if you don't want to take it into account and re-ask the question. And finally, of course, like the most important part, you have your answer that is generated right here. And you can see which sources generated this. So if I click on the little references point, I can see already which sources has been used to generate the answer, but also I can understand why it has been used. So typically here, for instance, it explains how we can do it through an internal tool called Forest. And I can see that in this thread in Slack, which is not documented, there was a Slack conversation explaining how to do it. So that's a perfect example of something where it has not necessarily been documented, but actually the answer is there. And so you can still kind of give access to the answer and reduce unnecessary questions, make your team more independent by plugging your Slack data or other tools data to have people able to access it.
100%. I was just about to add, because this is sort of my area of expertise, but we had this function for about 5 months. I didn't document it properly in our knowledge base until maybe 2 months ago when it was coming up again. And
Yeah.
you'll see this in every company. I mean, we are Slide, we sell a knowledge base, we pride ourselves at being good at documentation, but these things happen. It's just, I think it's like this utopia of having a knowledge base with always up to date information. There's so much knowledge like flowing around in your Slack, in your GitHub, in different sources. And this is just a great way to capture all of that.
Absolutely. That's like, to me, like the most kind of aha moment that you can have in AskX is really when the answer doesn't come from documentation. Of course, it should come ideally from documentation, but when you see it like being interpreted.
Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah, exactly. I see already like a question from Sumed that asks like, how do you make sure the user has the most updated information, and do you pull and index data, or is it real-time fetching? So the thing with real-time fetching is that you can't do semantic search. So basically it's not accurate. Like that's the main thing, like real-time fetching can't work for great, at least for AskX level type of answers. So we don't do real-time fetching. We do index the data in real time, but like we don't use the API of the tools to take them. And how do we kind of like, take the most up to date? It's, our magic sauce. We basically really kind of like, understand which media the information comes from, and we deprecate the information accordingly. If you have Slite on top of that, you have the benefit of having verification. So if a document is outdated, it's not taken into account. If the document is verified, it's much more relevant. You have this kind of like small subtleties. All right. I see also, how do you manage permissions as a follow-up questions? I think it's a good time to look at the data source panel. So what you saw is, of course, data that we indexed from our various services. Here you have like the services that are supported today. And basically the way it works, each service has a different kind of system. So typically for Google Drive, we respect based on the user email. So if you have like a permission as the user with this email on Google Drive, you will be able to access the document. If not, you won't see it. For Slack for now, we only do public channels, but actually we have private channels planned, and it will be the same based on the user email. That's mostly like how we do it. Some services, like for instance, GitHub, don't have permission, so you just need to have like access to the GitHub repository to be able to access it. So, but each service has their specificity, and when we onboard people, we explain you for each of them. But of course, security is a very important topic on this product. Actually, like for the fun story, our technical lead on this product is our lead security as well. So, we don't take this lightly. All right, I can run like another query, like, in the same theme of internal operation. Like one thing that we can ask is, so I'm a support agent or I'm a customer success person. How do I add a discount to a user? So very similar workflow. It will look for the source, read all my sources. In this case, you can see that it actually matches multiple times the same document because, like it actually has most of the answers. It's still kind of fun, like other, documents and other like thread, but it basically decided not to use them to generate the answer. And one thing that you see here that I wanted to show you is refine your search. So very often when people ask you questions, they don't realize that their question is not clear enough, or that their data, like the data that is fetched, is not vast enough to answer fully the question. And so we actually detect from the content these unclarities, and we actually suggest to the user, like, do you want to specify something, like in this case, for instance, which scenario are you talking about, like new customers, existing customers, custom coupon and so on. And so, maybe I want to just ask on a new customer, for instance. We are closing an enterprise deal and we want to kind of like sweeten the deal. And in this case, it will restart the process and generate again the answer with a step-by-step. And here I could also, specify this in the input prompt. So I can say I meant an existing one because I'm very much unclear, and it will do exactly the same. Awesome. Do we have any question, Anouk, before I continue?
I think there's a good question about, is AskX a standalone app or is it part of the Slite workspace? And I think it could be interesting to show that real quick.
Absolutely. So is AskX a standalone? Oh.
Just ask, yeah.
So it's a good answer, like AskX good answer for me, but it is both. So it is a standalone. So actually here you have actually very nice kind of snippets of information. So it is both a standalone app and it can be integrated with Slite. So we see it as a suite of application. Slite, is the best knowledge base we've built. AskX is an enterprise search tool. So we really see it as a way for you to enter, the data of any tool, not only Slite. If you have Slite, great, it's already synced. If not, totally fine, you can use it without it. And if you have both, first, the price is reduced. And you will, have a direct access point through Slite. So if I go to my Slite account right now, since I upgraded to AskX, I can actually click on this. Well, okay, I have still the onboarding, and I will be able to access the AskX experience straight from my slides and from a dedicated app as well. All right.
If we can quickly go back to the sources, because there was a question about the Slack channels and how you can make sure to not pull in any confidential information. So yeah, here we can actually see it. Permissions are respected. So that means that if I, as a user, don't have access to something in Google Drive, or well, Slack is slightly different, I think, Chris, where we don't feed in any private channels, right?
For now, but we will actually,
Yeah.
like in the near future. That's on the very short-term roadmap. For your
Mhm.
questions, like on not feeding all specifically for this channel, that's something that already exists. So you can actually sync specifically the channel that you want. I think we'll add like an option to add like almost all channels at one if you want, but you can be very specific and granular in which channel you want to index.
Yeah. And that's actually the
Another
case
thing,
for all of the different sources. So it's not like you connect your full Google Drive, like you pick the folders that you want to sync, you pick the projects in Jira that you want to sync, etc.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Another thing that I think is interesting, which is kind of linked to this in a sense, you have filters. Well, actually, let's start from scratch. From scratch. Here, when you are like in the Ask experience, you can actually add mention specific channels. So like whatever, like I can do security. So you can do this and ask just on this part, or even on the document. So if you want to summarize the document, you can mention it, summarize it. It will actually work. Or summarize or do whatever you want, of course. You can go beyond this and prepare this for people by using spaces. And I think that's something that's like also correspond to this use case where you might not want to have like all your team for all the use case using all the space. And so you can actually prepare preset filters and say, like this space is just for support engineer asking questions about security, and you will just add specific sources, and you can even set specific instructions. So I'll give you an example, for instance, for RFP. So RFP are this kind of like big lists of questions that customers ask before buying a product, where they will say, like, do you, I don't know, like what are the security labels that you have? Like, how do you kind of protect customer data? Do you have tables in your doc? Like these kind of things for us. And we can actually kind of preset the sources to kind of fetch the answer from. Here, I said something like I said, like in the instruction to say, if you need to add warnings to the user, like we want to make sure the answer is 100% correct, please add a line break and then add this disclaimer. So I'll show you how it works. So for instance, like what are the data, how long does data take to be deleted on customer removal? So for instance, that's a classic question for security for RFP, like they don't want their data to be held for too long. And here I use the RFP channel. So I just have like this kind of like 3 channels that have been used. I have my answer right here. So I could, as a security engineer or solution engineer, just copy paste that in my Google Sheet. But I also have like, because of the instruction, like this specific kind of like disclaimer, when a user is removed independently, blah, 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 like, so there is like a small kind of disclaimer for the reviewer to make sure that, the question is accordingly is the right one for their use case. Awesome. So we actually kind of like went to another use case, which is, solution engineer. That's another thing. Maybe a last use case. I see that we have like 20 minutes, but we have a bit of time actually. Yeah, another use case will be employee onboarding. So typically, like I will do actually a space for that as well if I were to do it properly, but let's try like globally. I can say I'm a developer, for instance. Actually, you could do that. Like I will mention my channel dev, or I will go actually in the technical space, the dev space where we have like the 2 channel like Slack and Slite that are speaking about this topic. And I can say, as a new engineer, as a new dev, how do I get the code base started on my machine, for instance. And like this is the kind of things that will pull out information from multiple places. And of course, like I might have like very kind of specific questions to ask. And here it is, like it will give me like the whole thing to answer, blah, blah, blah. And I can, it actually understood that I am Chris. So it fetched my little kind of like Chris garden environment. So my little domain of development. And of course, like I can then continue, like maybe I have like some specific tool that I need to use. So I can continue this discussion, ask for something a bit more. I can also use the suggested questions um, to continue the conversation with AskX. All right. I see like Sumit asking like we have a lot of questions. If the
Answered
information,
some of them already. I think one that is still open is how often do the sources update? If the information is updated on a document in Google Drive, how soon will it be available here?
yeah, how fast is the G drive data indexed in AskX? I think I could filter on AskX based on this as well to have like an even better answer, but I think it will still manage to kind of like answer. So okay, so here it kind of like got messed up by I mean, it's not like that's a very good example of something where it basically like answer very well, like how fast is it to index a good Drive data, like it's like specific kind of jobs that we've been running. The kind of like complete answer is that I could, but by the way, I've continued and specified and so on, but just to kind of like keep it short, it depends on the source as well. So for Slack, for instance, it will be instant, like literally 2 seconds. For Google Drive, it will take like 6 hours. So yeah, it depends on sources, but the max is 6, and you can sync manually, absolutely. But the max is 6 hours.
And is that the same for permissions when you revoke permissions
Yeah,
for a specific? Yeah, so that's in the same thing.
yeah.
All right.
It's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
Perfect. I think
All
that's all the
right.
questions. The rest we covered in the chat, and we just need to onboard Alessandra. That's the
Yeah.
all that's the open to do from the chat.
Awesome. Um, Awesome. I guess like maybe the last like the use case I would love to show you, but I can't because obviously I would expose like customer data is like one thing that I take my money. The best the best use case that I have is for agencies or for B2B products. You have like customer data and you want to get updated on, for instance, for me right now, the status of a pilot. And I will just like type in the name of the customer and say, what's the latest on blah, blah, blah on company X. And it will fetch, the discussion that we had maybe on Slack, like maybe the contracts that we sign in Google Drive and the Slite meeting docs and, all this stuff. And yeah, that's a very, very useful use case. Another thing that is useful is when it is about projects. So for instance, I actually shared the screenshot, but that's a good use case as well. Like what are the upcoming sources for AskX? Typically for us, AskX is a big project. I could go to the space AskX by the way to answer, but I think it's good enough. Like by default, we try to have like a great experience in the global kind of like asking a question space, and then like if you want to refine, you can use it. And here it is, like basically, I don't know why it didn't formatted it into a numbered list, but anyway, like Jira, Asana would connect private Slack channel and so on. So yeah, I think that's the end of this demo so far. Is there any use case that we haven't covered that you are curious about? If so, like drop it in the chat. If not, I'll continue and show you like a bit more stuff, like the future, like the kind of more forward-looking kind of like vision of this.
Yeah, I think that's like a nice little bridge. We missed the use case of what happened when I was on vacation, but I think that comes in the second part. Yeah, let us know in the chat if there's anything else that comes to mind for you and for your team that could be really helpful.
Yeah, And by the way, like you can always do that. Like typically, like if I do like with that range last week, I mean, what we do is much better. Oh, it's a very good question. Like is AskX trained on any language? You can absolutely ask in any question. So for instance, c'est quoi les bails sur AskX dernièrement? If there are French people, like you can laugh in the chat. So here it will basically, like look at all the stuff that I connected there, and it will answer in English, in French. I mean, because I typed in French, now I can say, like I want to force it in English and re-ask the last question. And so it actually rephrase the question to English. So yeah, it works in any language, no matter where you have your data, like which language you have your data in. So that's also the beauty of it for multicultural teams. And there it is. Like, like if I ask for the latest, you can do that. So yeah. And, it will do this kind of very nice thing where it will kind of mix indexings as well from, your project management tool as much as Slack and your Slite and so on. So, all right. I think I'll kind of like skip again my screen sharing to, and we have like very, very nice questions. I think like we'll take them like as a whole at the end, because we have very good
Almost
stuff.
like they know.
So the
Almost
first
like
thing
you've
is,
seen this presentation already. But yeah.
exactly. So in terms of like the beta, like please access, like request access, and really kind of like the details on the use case that we want. Like we want to obviously bring the people that are the closest to, want to buy this and use it in production for all their teams and so on. Right now, like we are a rhythm of about 10 new pilots per week. So, if you have a good use case, we should kind of reach out to you quite fast. And you can go to ask.slide.com to get there. Yeah, I kind of asked you that already, and I see like a lot of questions around this. So like if you have like more use cases, like please drop them in the chat. And here is a sneak peek on what's next. So the question is, which data source do you need? So I think I've seen a few here, but please drop in the chat what is your ideal sources like this. So you saw the things that we support right now, right? Like right now, the currently in production ones are Slides, of course, Google Drive, Linear, Slack, SharePoint, Confluence, Notion, GitHub, your public help center if it's supported, like Intercom, Notion, Zendesk, Slide, Super, and files, like just you drop, a PDF, your PPT, and so on. Do you see other kind of things that you absolutely need for your day-to-day work? Please put that in the chat. Now, the current kind of like request list from our pilots is this. The current kind of like priority that we'll put is private Slack channel, which is not listed here, but this is one of the most important one. Jira Asana are already things that we support in Slide, so we'll be building them next. So Matthias, it will come fast. Then we'll support Git for only the README files. Like we want to support code at some point, but that's a whole other level of complexity. But of course, that's something that we want. And then like the next step will be CRMs, so Salesforce and HubSpot, probably at you as well to start with. Meeting recorders will be next or in parallel. And then we'll end up with Google Sheet Excel. I think that's probably the roadmap for the next 3-4 months. That's really like, I think something that will cover probably 90% of the main tools of most teams out there. All right, and next, I wanted to share this. So we have like more in mind for Ask. A lot of things we actually started to work on already. So what you saw was something that didn't necessarily, I mean, we say it's AskX, so we use the word ask and we change this. But we realized that really like this tool can serve like much, much more than just asking questions. And that's the way we, start to build it. The first thing is search. I will show you a sneak peek. It's definitely like, please pardon the design and also the weird entry point. It is hidden for a reason. But the idea is that you might want to have a way to search for keywords rather than, like having to type in a questions. Like literally you're looking for a document. So for instance, if I type sub2, here, like this is the part where I'm asking you not to look too closely. It will be a bit slower as well for now, but we will kind of like, we are working on finishing this. Here it will actually kind of run a search instead of like a full analysis. And it will still kind of like give a similar type of output, but it actually like is like very much an advanced search. So it's basically like letting you find the document. You don't need to type a question, and it will still kind of give you a glorified search result, explaining you the context and giving you this in perspective. So if you want to type in just a customer name, for instance, and you won't have to enter this search mode, of course, you will just type it straight into your input and be able to access information. So it's really like something that becomes more than just AI question. It's also like enterprise search. All right. The second thing is data mode. So data mode is a very, very, very preview mode. So I warn you. I will go to linear mode, for instance. So linear is, of course, indexed to answer your question. We use the issues to answer your question. But the idea is that we also see people asking questions like, what are the running issues related to AskX and spaces? Well, actually, we probably don't have any, but to AskX and what do we have? Sources. And here, same thing, it will do an analysis, actually detect that this is a question around listing data, so listing a database of results. And what it does here, so same thing, like the UX will change. It actually kind of fetch the data of my, well, actually like with not great success, but it actually like is able to do a SQL query through my database, in this case of linear tickets. So that's something that I think is very interesting. Another thing that people want to do is actually like find answers that are not documents or content, but actually asking questions that are literally data, like what is the evolution of issues closed over time in Windows. So here what I'm expecting is a chart. I wanted to actually be able to output literally like the data. That would be super interesting. For instance, if you have your CRM or your Stripe or your anything that you use for billing, to actually generate charts of your data. So here it is. Like in August, we closed like 112 tickets and so on. And of course, we see this in the future as being something that can be embedded into the rest of the results. So really, like you are looking for something around, like, evolution of our business, and you want to have like, the revenue, and you want to see evolution over time, and generated automatically from Stripe. So we really see this as some part of the experience that will complement very nicely the LLM type of answer. So that's data mode, very, very preview. You see a lot of bugs here. Don't mind them, but just to give you a sense of like where we are trying to go with AskX, really cover all the questions that you might have. Then we have digest, which is much closer to come. Digest is a way when you were saying, I think Thomas, right? Like what's new, what's the latest in my team since I've been in holiday, something like that. We actually are working on this right now. If you have access to AskX, we can give it a try for your team. Where we're able to generate this digest, explaining to you literally like what happened last week in your team that is worth nothing, and sending you that ideally by email. And basically, like we want to also drive you to use AskX and retrigger the search for these specific topics in AskX. And finally, bulk mode. So that's yet again another type of question that people ask. It's not really a question, it's a bit meta, but they have a lot of questions. Like they have 100 questions at a time. And we want to cover this type of use cases. All right, that's a wrap. So I guess we can now answer all the remaining questions. Do you want to do a bit of moderation, Anouk, like if you read those and we can go?
I will. Yes. I think that we're mostly up to date. I think interesting question from Stephen. Can AskX produce new slide pages as an output?
So that's a very, it's actually funny because it was a question that we got, I think this morning from one of the pilots.
Earlier today.
That,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, like such a good result that he was like, yeah, like I wish I could kind of save it. So the first thing is you can copy, so, like if I go there and I say, like, let's go to the AskX things and I say, what are spaces, right? A blog article about it. Well, yeah, just I'm actually doing this without explaining. You can actually specify some instruction directly after the question mark. You can also use this instruction to kind of specify. Actually, we might have removed this and I was a bit cocky here. So I will actually do it like this. So let's say that, like I get like a perfect answer about spaces and I want to use it. Here it is. Well, I mean, not a big fan of the LLM answer here, but anyway, like let's say that this is really great. You can actually copy here straight away in text, paste it in a document. For now, like that works. That would be, render perfectly. The creation is definitely something that we consider. It's actually very funny for us to feel that the documentation part could kind of come from other tool and feed into Slide through AskX. I think that will be like a very, very strong superpower in the future. So definitely something that we plan to. And it's something that we actually, the technical brick to do it is something that we actually are building right now. That's a good occasion to show it for Ask Insight. So Ask Insight is a way, and that's also a big superpower of AskX, is a way for you to see which questions have been either reported. So for instance, here, do Google Workspace groups synchronize with Slack groups? I was asking this morning. We don't have like the information listed specifically. I think we can't, but I'm not sure. So I reported it, explained that, I needed this. And so we now have a way to actually assign. So I assigned this to Florian, which is the best to answer this. I could also assign it to the groups of developers. And we are actually building the answer part where you can actually create a document from there. And this brick will be used inside the Ask message to also generate like save the document that you created in Slide. If you have both, of course.
Okay. Final 2 minutes, so maybe we'll take one more question. How does it work with licenses? Since we've seen some comments like sign me up, take my money. How do we do that?
How does it work with what? Sorry?
Licenses. How does it work with licenses? Let's say you have Slite or maybe only
Oh, yeah.
AskX or both. How should we see that?
So basically, like today, the way it will work is if you're looking for just AskX, the entry price starts at $15 per seat per month. And if you have like the mix of both, if you already have Slite, AskX is an upgrade of $10 per seat. And yeah, that's as simple as that. All right.
All right.
Is it proportionate
Okay.
to the amount of data storage? That's actually a very good question.
Yeah.
The data storage basically will bring in a fair, how do you call it? A fair limit. Like it is very costly to host a lot of data and it can kind of really impact our servers and the speed and the performance of Slide services and AskX services. So we will put a limit, but that will be very high. For the anecdote, we had like a few weeks ago, like a client onboarding 500,000 documents and feeding like alpha for server instantly. So we need to have like a limit, and we'll put it for AskX. It is an early product, so it has not been enforced yet, but there will be definitely a fair usage limit, the same way we have other, fair usage limits. Yeah. That's a good question from Alessandro. If we want to ask X related to our Slite for sales, do we need to upgrade all the seats? At the moment, yes, but that's definitely something that we consider. We can chat in Slack as well after. It's something that we consider to, only enable it for some people.
All right. That's a wrap. Thank
All
you,
right.
Chris, for the demo, for the information. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. If you want to have more information, go to ask.slite.com, which I'm typing right now, and just ping us. Let us know if there's anything else that comes to mind. If you want to test it, if you have any requests or any ideas, we'd love to hear from you.
Same thing. Thanks so much, folks, and so
Right.
much, Anok, for the help.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, folks.